Hello, welcome to today's Studio Armor review. Today we're going to launch on our review of the Exodite armies, delving into the first codex, almost the obvious choice, the Eldar Codex. So this portion of my Exodite army is based on and uses the rules from the standard Eldar Codex. Now, it makes obvious sense to start there, but the challenge for doing that was trying to equate what I would find in the different fan-based Exodite codices to what I see in the Eldar Codex. The biggest difference is the Exodites don't have vehicles in their codex, and the Eldar do have vehicles. So that kind of made things a little bit difficult to figure out. But over the course of a year or so, I was able to kind of put some thoughts around how to go along with this codex, make it Exodite. Now we'll go in future videos going, force organization chart categories, going unit by unit, walking you through the various details. But I'm going to kind of cover the basic concept. Now, essentially, I chose to think through the Eldar Codex in light of my concept for my Exodites. In the case, in the Exodites, you really can't do a good Eldar Codex and not have jet bikes. I mean, really, you should. Now, jet bikes aren't typically in the Exodite Codex or Exodite fan material, but it kind of still makes sense in the way I scripted my Exodites. You see, they left just with the rest of the Exodites from their home world, settled on a maiden world, and they primarily leverage the beasts that are indigenous to the planet. But they are Eldar. They work with the Baltan, and they work with the Corsairs. Harlequins visit them. They're going to have access to the vehicles. I couldn't really see a reason why they wouldn't use those in combat. Now, they might not use it in everyday life, because the whole concept of the Exodite way of life is persevering through the challenging hardships of the more rural, rustic lifestyle. That's kind of their chosen path to steer clear of the excesses of their Dark Eldar kin. But in combat, you want to use every advantage possible, especially since they need to protect their homeworld. So I figured, jet bikes will still work. So in my concept, jet bikes are common. But I can also use pterosaurs. Think of the Lizardmen Warhammer models. The lizard, they have a pterosaur. Those can double as jet bikes too. So I could actually weave in pterosaur riders, a very Exodite looking kind of model, to be jet bikes. Now, I figured all of the vehicles will still exist, of Crimson Hunters and tanks and stuff. But again, those are for combat. They're not part of the regular lifestyle. Now, at this point, I don't have any of those vehicles. I'm focusing on the models that, to me, kind of represent and communicate my concept of the Exodites more fully. So you'll see as we review the different units, mine are focusing more on the conversions of the infantry, at least for the Eldar Codex. Now, in the Eldar Codex, the Wraith units, they sort of make sense still, but I didn't want to use them for the Eldar Codex. So, with the exception of the Wraith Knight, which I decided matched perfectly as the Exodite Knight, the old codexes, the old epic games. That's the only Wraith unit that I left in place, but I don't, in the way I build it, and the way I run it, the way I fluffed it out, it's not Wraith. It's a piloted, almost a mini Titan, okay? But all the rest of the Wraith units, the Wraith Guard, the Wraith Lord, Wraith Seer from the Imperial Armor book, all of those are indigenous creatures. So we'll get to more details in those as we review the various units in future videos. Now, all the weapons, the typical Eldar weapons, are available because they trade with the Harlequins and Corsairs, and they will be able to get the weapons. But they don't actually follow the specific Phoenix Lords. They don't have the different aspects. Now, I've got a couple of different units in here to represent those aspects. However, I've got a different backstory for each of those. Again, we'll go over those in the future videos. Now, one thing that you have to have for an Exodite army is banners. They love banners, whether it's on their beasts or whether the infantrymen carry them around. So you're going to start seeing more and more banners as this army develops. Now, the one thing that I was able to settle on weapon-wise was looking at crossbows would count for the shuriken weapons, the short-range 12-inch shuriken catapults, and the wraith bows that are traditionally in the Exodite codexes. Those would be anything that would have a longer range than 12 inches, 18 or more. So like any of the laser weapons, or as you'll see in the future codex or army review with the Dark Eldar side of things, you'll see a lot of Kabbalite warriors using the 24-inch range weapons. They're having wraith bows. So here at the Eldar, we're focusing on the crossbows because their weapons are only 12-inch range. So that's the general concepts behind my interpretation of the Eldar Codex. Now, what's interesting is, as you can see, it's a very colorful army. Eldar, there's a real neat little slogan. There's an image of all these different aspect warriors charging, and the caption is "Taste the Rainbow," and I kind of embraced that for this. Each color combination represents a different clan. Now, the way I'm interpreting the Eldar Codex, this represents all of the house clans that are settled on Lorien, my main world. So each family, as they traveled through the void on the way to the main world during their exodus, they kind of recreated the traditional Eldar hierarchical society where they had houses and clans aligned and families within clans, a very hierarchical structure. And so, upon settling in Lorien, the leaders of these various families and houses that came with them, they reorganized themselves. There are 6 houses with various names, such as Star or Sun or Wind. And the different clans will be aligned or allied to those different houses. So you have walkers and riders or swords. So, for example, you have the Wind Riders or the... I'm forgetting some of my own names here. Wind Riders, Sun Swords, Star Lances. Those are the different clan names. All based on the house they're aligned to. Now, it was kind of interesting to look at the different possibilities. We had to interpret all the different, like the Autarch and the Farseer and the Warlocks and the Spirit Seers. All this had to be reinterpreted to match the Exodite Codex, and actually came out pretty good. We'll go over those in more detail in the HQ video that's going to come out soon. But as I plan through this, the bulk of the Exodites that arrived in Lorien with the first Exodus formed in this society, rural herding or farming society, structured around houses and clans. Each house has chosen its own primary colors, like blues, greens, reds, yellows, as identifying it. So that's why you're going to see different colored warriors. For example, you got the Guardians there's green, there's blue, there's orange, there's red, there's purple. They're from different houses. And then the variations of those colors, there's always a primary color, and each clan has chosen a secondary color. It could be anything. It could be a similar shade, like a different shade of blue, for example, for the house. The Wind Walkers, for example, are they're a Copen blue color, and some of the clans have a slightly different color blue, a lighter shade of blue. Some are yellows in the secondary color, some are red, and each of those differentiates the houses. So it gives me the opportunity to make every unit colored a little bit differently. They can all be themed together, and I try to tie them together by using iconography, especially around the rune for Lilith, who is, they're the main world's patron god, goddess of dreams. So what you see in front of you is a relatively small army. I'll admit it's not able to deal with a lot of the threats out there, but again, I'm focused on building this army by looking at those units that, to me, really capture the essence of the Exodites and really help convey that sense of an Exodite, rural, rustic kind of army, at least within the Eldar Codex. I've got a lot more units to get, a lot more modeling to do, but this is it's actually coming along fairly well. I really enjoy. It's actually only about half the size. I still have I have to get all the vehicles and weave them in there. Actually, I did leave a couple models off. Some like the Volsrath support batteries, for example. I had, I can use them as is with Guardians, but overall, the Eldar Codex was the easiest one to merge. It's just I can't go straight Exodite Codex like the fan-based ones because there are very few units that translate well into a indigenous creature like a dragon rider of some sort, except in the Wraith unit area. And there's no vehicles, so a lot of the good stuff in the Eldar Codex just isn't available. So I've compromised a bit on the Eldar Codex side. Now, I've also compromised a bit on the Dark Eldar Codex side, which is another set of reviews I'll do. But I did not have to compromise at all on the third. I found a way on a third codex that I could use to stay very true to the codex, original concept of the Exodites in the codex. So I hope this kind of gives you a sense of what I've got going with the Eldar Codex portion of my army. And again, these represent the house, clan units from that hierarchy, the more structured. If you want to think of it in the Warhammer terms, it's more like the High Elves kind of a thing. Nice structured society. They live noble lives or what have you, but they're not. They're just not heavily into some of the independence like the Dark Elves would be, or the Wood Elves. They have a very structured society here. So anyway, that's the general concept and how I went about interpreting, just generally interpreting the Eldar Codex. Next video, we'll start talking about the different HQ units and how I've woven those into the Exodite Codex. Alright, until then, I'll see you next time. Please go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and hopefully this video is giving you some ideas and sparked your imagination. Alright, bye-bye.